Did she already open the door?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I've
Yep.
got running my mouth. Y'all forgive me. Good evening. Let's call the meeting to order, please. Today is Tuesday. It's March 13th. We're at the Civic Center for our regular monthly meeting. Let's stand for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Adrian, call the roll, please.
Mr. McLaughlin.
Here.
Ms. Albrecht.
Here.
Mayor Kathy.
Here.
Mr. Wallace. Here. Mr. Putnam.
Here.
Thank you. I don't have anything at this time. Do Rex, you have anything?
No.
No. Citizens' comments? I think everyone here knows the procedure. Any citizens' comments? Okay. Under the consent agenda, we have a February 27th meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any corrections or additions? Any opposition? Let the record reflect 5-0. Mr. Jeff?
All right, just a few updates tonight. Shouldn't take more than an hour or so. Just see it if you're listening. Let's see. Sand bypass system, beach restoration. Not a whole lot of progress has been done on that. We had our meeting with DEP we talked about last time. Our environmental guy is working on the environmental assessment of the area. Survey is getting mobilized to go out there and start shooting elevations for a pre-construction survey, so we'll know where we're at prior to beginning the project so we can compare it when we're done. That's all to report on that one. The 15th Street Sidewalks TAP grant application. I saw that we got some feedback from DOT. We're circling back with DOT, or I guess it's at the Regional Planning Council stage at this point, seeing exactly what kind of information they're looking for. So that should be moving along. Alternate water source, we're still waiting to hear from Wallace Pumps and making a final determination as to where we're going to set our permanent wells. I think that's about it. The paving and stormwater projects on 23rd, 33rd, and the Canal Parkway extension. I spoke with Rolando, the DEP reviewer, earlier today on a couple of different items. We should be about ready to wrap those up and get those permits issued. So with that, I'll take any questions, if anyone has any.
Questions for Jeff? What about any of our citizens have a comment or a question for Dewberry on any of these projects? Okay, we appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Chief?
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Monthly report is as follows. Okay, the Mexico Beach Police Department responded in the month of February to 373 calls for service. Just going back as far as on a graph, how many we call for calls each month the last couple of years. They have increased. This time last year, we had 264 calls. 16, we had 292, 206 and 15, and 145 and 14. So from 145 calls for service to 373, and we're anticipating with spring break coming, an average of 400 to 450 calls a month, starting probably next month. Out of the 28 days of February, we conducted 3,520 building checks, conducted 86 traffic stops. During the traffic stops, 15 full citations were written and 64 traffic warnings were written in lieu of a monetary one. We had 2 arrests. We had 10 suspicious person calls, which I appreciate the citizens calling in on that. We had 1 death that was cleared as a self-inflicted gunshot, so it was deemed as a suicide. We had 2 suicide calls, 1 being local, 7 medical response calls, 19 follow-up reports, 9 suspicious vehicles, and we're still conceiving whether or not we need to correct this, but we're still receiving phone calls from citizens wanting us to unlock cars. Right now, the policy is we do not unlock cars. We advise them to call Pop-A-Lock unless it's an emergency, then we'll do whatever we can. But I don't think we as a city, unless you have some other guidance, that we should start unlocking people's cars. We've run into a liability for damages and stuff like that unless we have a waiver that they would sign for release. But if it's something that the council or the city wishes to look
Doesn't
at,
the local tow service?
they do, and there is a monetary fee, and sometimes they have to wait an hour or 2 hours before they come. Sometimes it's as far as Panama City. And you figure $125 to $175 to come unlock a car. So there is a liability involved if we go to do it. But that's just something that you might want to consider. I think it'd be beneficial for the city for us not to do it. But it's also on a case-by-case basis. Obviously, if there's a child in the car, we do have some abilities to unlock it. I have a Slim Jim and a couple other gadgets in the car, so it can be done. But I think just because you locked your keys in the car, I don't think we should be unlocking cars for a liability reason. Another issue that we've had over the past 4 or 5 years, we've had 14 guns stolen out of the city of Mexico Beach. Majority of them are from unsecured vehicles. What I'm asking the citizens of Mexico Beach, and I made them available on the back counter back there, there is a form, and I have it in front of you. We're not looking to track the people's weapons in the city of Mexico Beach, but I am asking that they take these information sheets, and on the back of them, it's got the locations for the serial numbers of the weapons. Fill out the information sheet, keep it in your personnel file, because of the 14 weapons that we've got, other than being told that it's a black weapon, a black shotgun, a silver weapon, silver shotgun, or a gray in color weapon, we've got reports in the system with no serial numbers, no nothing. So I have no intention to want to track this. I'm just asking that the people take the time with the weapons to fill this out, keep it somewhere safe. And that way, if we do have to come take a report, the information is available. And we had 2 felony arrests. And again, the calls are up 109 calls this time last year at 373. So that's all I have as far as the report, unless there's any questions from the council.
How will this information get out to the citizens if they don't watch the TV program?
Right now, I've spoken to several people in town. I'll have them available here, so if they want to get them at the end of the night, we'll also have them at the station also.
Can
And I'm going to have the officers keep them in the car, so if in the event somebody hears about it, they make a comment about it, I'd rather have you something documented, because 14 weapons in a town this size, especially with everything that's going on right now with the schools, I mean, 1 weapon's way too much. 14 is a little on the ridiculous side.
Can we put it on our website or on the back of the water bill just to let people know that this is available for them to keep themselves?
We certainly could.
But it would help identifying things.
Anything that would help, just, I'm a firm believer, I wouldn't want somebody coming to my house saying, let me know all your weapons, but for security reasons, if any of mine was stolen, I could at least show you a document of, at least a picture or serial number of something,
Right.
so. That's all I have, thanks, sir.
Any other questions or comments for the chief from the citizens? Any
I
comments?
don't think that we should start unlocking car doors either.
Great. Me neither, but I've had several calls for people asking. It's case-by-case basis, obviously, for emergency reasons.
Okay, thank you, chief. Danny?
Yes, sir. We continue on this month. The fire assessment bills have been mailed. They're going to be due May 31st, so most people have received theirs by now. The station repairs continue with the company we hired. That was the money we got from Tranquil Harbor that was donated to repair the station. We're working on advertisements now to put out for bid for the roof replacement and then the stormwater repair to stop future flooding issues. After the last meeting where we got direction that we could bring back beach patrol. There's a volunteer organization that raises money within the fire department. They voted to buy a UTV. It was about $13,000. Didn't cost the city anything. That's from fundraising they've done. And so we have a brand new vehicle to help do the beach patrol on. And then later tonight, I have something else on the agenda we can just talk about when we get to that later about the purchase of a new truck. But that's all I have.
Okay, any questions, comments on, for fire? Yes. Thank you. Philip? Didn't forget you.
I was gonna say something later, but I forgot. Nothing real special happened last month. It was actually a pretty quiet month. You guys will see that we picked up 3 tons more than what we did this time last year. A little bit of an uptick. And we've updated our water and sewer flow charts. Running about in par on average. We're actually less water usage this time, or now, than we did last year. Last year we used almost 10.5 million. With this year we've used just over 7 million. Beyond that, this really don't have nothing to do with last month, but we should be getting ready to pour concrete at the pavilion this week, if all goes well, the one at the canal. And the pole barn was completed this week as well at the boat ramp for the fish cleaning station. Minus 4 pieces of trim, but yeah, they'll get that up pretty quick. Beyond that, we got one of our workers back yesterday who's been out for quite some time dealing with some medical issues, but he's back, he's good to go, and that's all I got.
Okay, questions for Public Works?
So the pole barn is up, so when do we get the rest of it?
Which part are we talking about? The fish cleaning station?
Yes.
We got the cooler at the yard now.
Okay,
It's sitting at the yard. We've got the
Okay.
tabletop sitting at the yard.
okay,
We're focused on the pavilion at the canal, getting that one done and finished, and then we'll jump back over to the boat ramp.
okay. Thanks.
One thing, and sort of goes along with that, once we have the fish cleaning station in place and operational, are we going to do any type of PR work to let people along the canal that have cleaning stations, or are we gonna send out something that says, look, you know, we've been sliding on you, throwing them in the canal, but we're through with that?
Well, we're definitely going to replace the signs that we used to have down there that says do not discard fish carcasses in the canal. Our other signs that say no cleaning fish on canal. Definitely going to put those back up. Going to put a sign up on Highway 98 just below our boat ramp sign that says Mexico Beach Fish Cleaning Station with an arrow pointing to the right. It never crossed my mind to send out flyers or anything like that, but it's definitely something that wouldn't take a bunch of work to do.
It wouldn't put something at the marina, and some of those,
Advertise
that
that
HOA, that some of those along, that have the canal, where they have a lot of, or several fish cleaning things there, and let them know that, I mean, they clean them there, but they need to take their stuff over there, or they
Yes.
don't take it over there, but they need to take it somewhere, but not in the
Other
canal.
than the canal, yes, sir. Not a problem.
Did we decide to put cameras up or no, or?
We've been going back and forth about that one for a while now. It's definitely something that we can do, but I feel it would be in our best interest before we go out and spend a bunch of money on cameras and stuff like that. Let's play it out, so to speak. Let's see if there's an issue. Hopefully there won't be an issue and we can save that money. But I think before we jump into that, let's just see how it works. That's my opinion.
Anything else for Phil? Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Clark?
All right, in your packet is the January 31st financial report. There is an error on the top. We are not negative in revenue versus expenditure. I just didn't do the math. As of the end of January, we've collected 78% of the property tax amount, and at that time last year, we were at 63%, so people are paying earlier. Also, the fire assessment notices did go out last week on Monday, And since they've gone out, as of today, we've collected $62,000, so about 10% have already paid. That's all I have.
When are we doing the, I guess I misunderstood from last meeting, when are we doing the budget amendments?
They're coming. I just have to get them drawn up in an ordinance. I haven't done them yet.
Okay.
Hopefully the next meeting.
Questions for the clerk? Finance, anybody? Mr. Mayor?
First of all, I'd like to embarrass somebody who's in the back room by herself and she can't see us right now. But yesterday was her anniversary date for having been an employee here for 22 years already. So Pam,
Come on in.
she's not coming
I
out.
know she won't, but I just thought I'd tell you.
I see that red glow coming.
Thank you for what you do.
One of our most trusted employees. First of all, we have had a voluminous records request sent to us yesterday, about 80 items to be exact. As soon as we get some clarification on a couple of those items, we're going to get that information out to some of you, because that means you're going to have to look up some of your emails and past records that you might have. So I'll get that to you just as quick as we get clarification. Leave no trace pickup. Last year, the city did the pickup until it got towards the busy season. Then towards the end, we backed off and then kind of cut the contract short from the contractor we had, and we finished out the year. Philip and his crew did an excellent job of picking those items up, and I see that there's no reason to make a change for this coming year. The only issues we have, of course, are the busy weekends, Memorial Day, July 4th, and Labor Day, of course. So at that point, Philip had said that we may need to get a couple of crews out there for those few days to kind of help pick up the slack, because you only have so much time in the mornings to pick these items up before 7 a.m. And you want to make sure you cover the whole beach. If you just have one truck out, there's no way you can go from one end to the other. So that begs the question. Last year we had a promise from the CDC to pay for $11,000 of that contract of the contractor. So do you think it's worth asking them again to help contribute for our special overtime on the busy holiday weekends, or should we just go ahead and bite the bullet and do it?
I'd recommend asking. The worst they can say is no. Do they have any money?
Well, they are not in the negative. They've got money in the bank.
I don't have a problem with asking.
Okay.
If you don't ask, you don't know.
We'll try to formulate what the extra cost would be for those busy weekends, and I think it's appropriate to ask for just that, so we'll take that on.
Have you already contacted the contractor to see if they're willing to do more weekend-based type work? Are they interested, willing, and able?
Honestly, we have not contacted them because they didn't really perform as well as we had anticipated. We never got data on how many items they picked up when they picked things up. We got data on us when we pick stuff up, but not from them. So based on their performance, we felt it's, why even ask? That's all I have, Your Honor.
That's it. Questions for our administrator? Good. Okay, moving on. Next is the discussion of beach vendor ordinance. And then there's a ordinance 688 for first reading. So discussion for beach vendor. Hey, you want to lead us through that, please?
We did, the copy of the ordinance that was in the packet was the copy that had the cross-outs, mark-outs, different colors. It's very hard to read, but we felt that it was beneficial for the board to understand what we did change from the last time. And so we did do that. On your screen, of course, is a copy of the clean copy without the strikeouts and that sort of thing. So that was not in your packet, but it's on the screen. And of course, it's available at anyone's request. In addition to that, we redid the beach vendor permit application where we included a sketch, which we didn't have before. We cleaned up the information about the liability insurance. We took out the information concerning background checks, police records, things of that sort. So we just did the permit to reflect what was in the ordinance. That way it's very generic, and it allows the beach vendors to operate their business as they see fit without our intrusion. But nonetheless, the items that were changed from the copy that was voted down last month had items in there about the application fee, $50 application fee, which is down there towards section 3. We did have information where we crossed out the vehicular part. We made a whole new section about vehicles on the beach, and that is where it says that only ATVs are allowed on the beach. We define what the Florida statute says about those. We took the language out where we quoted the state statute about ATVs on public roads because it is more appropriate to just refer to Florida law as opposed to regurgitating all that information. So bottom line is, we all know that ATVs are not allowed on state and public roads. We say that the ATVs could be on the beach before 7 a.m. and after 7 p.m. If they need permission for other vehicles and or different times, they got to have the permission of the city administrator. The location didn't really change much. We did discuss about deleting item 3 under section 5, where it said the location is not on beach deeded to the city or other public agency. The reason we left that in is because much of our beach is deeded to the city. In other words, east of Toucans, we've got a deed. The area west of the Driftwood, we've got a deed. But the area in front of both the Driftwood and the El Governor, we don't have a deed to, but we control it. And so because we don't legally own the property, we felt that section 3 would be appropriate to just leave it in there. And of course, the people that have permissible operators, you need to get the qualification of the upland parcel, and those people have to be the operator of a hotel, motel, restaurant, tavern, or bar. And there can be more than one vendor at a location, as long as they got permission of the upland parcel. Section 7 was taken directly from the ordinance. We just regurgitated what was in there. The insurance requirements, we've got it to where $100,000 per occurrence, $300,000 aggregate. But if you have motor-driven floating devices, that changes to $250,000 per occurrence and $1 million aggregate. The limited exception to leave no trace, that really wasn't changed from the ordinance that was voted down not long ago. So those are the changes to the ordinance. And the last conversation we had some sort of a consensus without looking at the details. But now that you got the details, it's totally up to the board as to where we go from here.
I have one or two clarifications. So, yeah, ordinarily I wouldn't expect to see a red line in the package, but I think what Mel is trying to do is show the changes versus the last ordinance that we did the second reading on. It's not exactly showing those changes, but this is really seems like it's more set up as is it's the draft that Mel made, which then I revised. So you may see a few things in there that don't necessarily look like something that was in the ordinance before that was removed. But if you read it as the things that are struck out are not part of the ordinance, then it's all complete. We'll definitely have not a red line the next time you see this, and if it's too confusing tonight, we can always hold off on the first reading until next time. But as Mel said, the major changes are the way vehicles are handled is different. It's focused on ATVs now instead of trucks, and then the insurance requirements are new, and they really are almost identical to Bay County's insurance requirements.
The only question I have, when I read this, other than some of the things that were just mentioned, this is what we talked about doing last time, other than a few of the revisions that you just mentioned, Nick, from what we discussed and somewhat agreed to. I didn't see anything new that was significant, I guess is, the insurance is new, but I mean, I understood that.
Right. I think it was a $50 application fee.
Right, okay.
It's primarily the difference of the way motor vehicles are handled. The other version, you could have a pretty large truck under your beach vending license, and under this version, you're limited to ATVs.
Okay. That's the only question. Other questions concerning what we have in front of us? Any other discussion? From the table, any comments? Okay, then do I have a motion to read ordinance 688 by title only?
So move.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Any comments? Call the roll, please. Oh, excuse me. Yes, ma'am.
Connie Reisinger, 504 Maryland Boulevard. I'd like to ask the board up here, is this the first time you've seen a clean copy? Without all the red
I saw what was
marks?
done. I saw what was done at the last meeting, and I certainly understood the markouts because it was part of the last meeting.
Because when I saw it, I mean, it wasn't real clear with all the mark throughs. So I'm hesitant that you go ahead and do a reading of this since you have not seen
Well,
a
it's the
clean
first
copy.
reading, and if there's some, I mean, it's not like this is going to become law. Believe me, I don't know of any group of people that has read or reread or
Well, I
read
know.
or reread more than the five of us sitting here concerning what we were trying to do concerning beach vending. I'm very comfortable,
Okay.
personally.
And I think the crossouts in the red helped so that, for me, so I could see what was changed from the last time, rather than going back from one sheet to another sheet. They had it right there in front of me. So I'm comfortable with the way it was processed.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Ms. Albrecht?
Yes.
Mayor Kathy?
Yes.
Mr. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Putnam?
Okay.
Want me to read it?
That will then obviously be a item for the March.
Yeah, for the second reading.
I have to read it once, right now.
Oh, I apologize. I apologize.
Ordinance number 688, an ordinance of the City of Mexico Beach, Florida, prohibiting businesses from operating on the beach without a beach vending permit, providing an exception for businesses meeting specific conditions, providing definitions, providing beach vending permit approval process, providing permissible locations for activities conducted under a beach vending permit, providing permissible activities under a beach vending permit, prohibiting heavy wooden lounger-style chairs on the beach after September 30th, 2018, providing a limited exception to leave no trace for holders of beach vending permits, repealing ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict, providing for codification, and providing an effective date.
Thank you. All right, that'll move to our April meeting. All right, mail number one is accessory structures. Under other business.
Yes, sir, that's correct. The Planning and Zoning had a meeting last week in which they deliberated about a potential ordinance that was crafted by our city attorney based on the comments from the city council previous to that. The issue was mother-in-law suites, allowing family members to stay in accessory apartments in the backyard. And the particular ordinance in question, which I've got on the screen there, first question was how many. The next item was what is defined as a relative. And after the Plan and Zoning read it and took comment from the floor, they did vote to not recommend approval of this ordinance. In part because enforcing the ordinance would be very, very difficult. I even made the comment that I would probably get a call from people who would say that you need to go check this out because so-and-so has their second cousin staying with them, not the first cousin. And people in the audience agreed that probably would happen. So the enforceability of it is very, very difficult. You know, we don't want to canvass the neighborhoods in the evenings looking for renters at people's backyards. It's just not really something we do. But of course, renters, of course, is not the reason for this ordinance. The renter is a separate issue. The mere fact that an accessory apartment exists is the issue, and allowing your family members was the issue at hand. So bottom line is they recommended it not be approved, but it now falls into the lap of the city council.
Okay. Any comments?
Yeah, I'll make a comment because the only reason I proposed this was based upon my experience with my mother-in-law. It was not proposed to create a hassle at all. It was referencing mother-in-law suites, and as I looked it up before I made and thought about it, that's kind of a generic term for a place, a location for a family member usually being taken care of by other family members. The reason I did make a suggestion that different than our ordinance, which says it has to be attached to a house, was to allow it to be unattached if that's what the family wanted. Again, had nothing to do with a rental, but from the standpoint, again, my background with my mother-in-law, extremely resistant, extremely independent individual, very resistant from living with family members in the household. However, when we talked with her about a potential of putting a mother-in-law suite on the property here with my other brother-in-law, it'd have to be my brother-in-law, even though she didn't take it on, she certainly listened to it because she felt she had still more independence, even though she was close to the family. Had nothing other than that to do with that. Was strictly as I was looking at my age, age of some of us here in the city who have or are going to be taking care of our parents, fathers, mother-in-laws, mothers, trying to give a little bit of an extra that would possibly entice that family member to allow to be taken care of. My mother-in-law didn't take it. My mother-in-law died in her home, didn't get found for 3 days. So it was very personal to me. Had absolutely nothing to do with rental, folks. Many of the reasons that Nick had listed that were a potential problem for us to be able to take care of this, frankly, are a potential problem with any accessory building we have. We have many buildings that people came in and said, hey, this is going to be my playroom. 10 years later, it's been repurposed, and we still have that problem. So if I caused any issues with our citizens because they thought I was trying to propose a place to rent out on Airbnb, sorry, not what I was proposing. And it was strictly dealing with the idea of a mother-in-law suite, nothing else.
Okay, any other comments?
I don't have any problem with having an accessory apartment in the back for a mother-in-law. We all have friends coming down, good friends that come down to the beach, and sometimes you don't have room in your house, but if you have something already created and it's nice and it's clean and it's a bed, I'm not talking about an apartment, but a bed where they can come, I don't have a problem with that. I realize that if we wanted to do this, to enforce it would be horrendous. And I don't want Big Brother to be that involved with our lives. But I really don't have a problem with having a space in the back of your garage, I just don't have a problem with that. As long as it's kept clean and neat, and it doesn't become a slummy area.
Anybody else?
Have we had any complaints of any of these supposedly 8 or 10 structures where people are renting out accessory buildings? Any complaints, problems with that?
No, sir. None of those reported. I remember the last council was speaking, I went back and looked, and I had no recorded amount of that.
Nothing, you know, for me, the confusion was that we were saying it was, the LDR says nothing, but we were saying from us here and out here, sometimes it's okay for our grandchildren to stay back there or whatever. And I think that's where a lot of confusion comes in. Is it okay? I mean, it involves another car there, it involves people there, just like rentals, if you rent it too. So that's, you know, I don't know that you can say one's okay and one's not okay.
Anybody else? Any comment? Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Want to read something up to the council members?
You may.
Thank you.
I was at the Planning and Zoning Board meeting, and I talked to, and I've already sent you guys an email about my concerns, but I talked to some of the members individually, and I think what was difficult for them, and I think that the city attorney spelled that out, was the family issue. You know, my cousin can stay, but my best friend can't. As you just said, you know, you have friends coming down. That makes it extremely difficult to enforce, and I'm not even sure. There's some opinion that legally you can't really tell people who can and cannot stay on their property. I know that the mayor has said in the past that, you know, this is the way it's always been, but they're all over the city. And we have local realtors who have been in selling real estate here for decades who are advertising them publicly. They're on the Bay County Property Appraiser's website. They're all over the city. And I think Mr. Putnell said it best, you get mixed signals. I mean, I watched the last meeting, I heard the mayor say, if you want to put Murphy beds out there, that's okay. I mean, it's just, there's been so many mixed signals. There's a tremendous amount of evidence that says it wasn't clear and people didn't really understand. So here we are. What I put before you is I looked at the Bay County ordinance. Panama City Beach also allows those. They have regulations around them. I think the same law firm serves Panama City Beach as well, so I would say there's a wealth of resources on what's working, what's not working that you guys can glean from. So what you have is just a proposal of amendments that might meet all of the concerns that you have. I looked at the concerns that were raised in the Planning and Zoning Board meeting, as well as concerns I've heard you guys address in your meetings, and tried to pull from different ordinances items that would cover those. You know, what you do with renting, whatever you want to do, I think those of us who have one will comply. The problem that we have is there are no rules today for vacation rentals at all, and I would hope that if you're going to look at that, then you look at it as a whole. You look at, we have 0 regulations right now for transient rentals, and I know that there's some limits to what you can and cannot do, and Nick can speak to that. I'm not even going to try to, but certainly you can regulate them. I mean, you know, how many people can stay in a rental house, you know, how much parking, all those things I think the city should be looking at as we're growing and make some smart decisions and put some regulations in place. And I think that would include habitable guest structures as well, or people today are renting out individual bedrooms in their home in Mexico Beach. So how can you say it's okay to rent out individual bedrooms in your home, but you can't rent out your guest house? I think it's problematic, and it seems to be an arbitrary rule. So I would just ask that if you're going to look at that, look at the big picture, all of the transient rental issues that have been raised by the public. I know I talked to the police chief, and I asked him if I could quote him on this, and he said I could. I asked him if there's been any issues with rentals, and as he just said, there really isn't. I think you said there was one, but it was actually the owner and the owner's teenage kids, so it had nothing to do with the rental. It was the owner of the rental who was there. So we are a tourism town, and I just would like for you to look at that. But when just getting back to set the rental issue aside, do what you want to do on that, but just look at the habitable structure. I know the Wilkins are here tonight. They have one, they bought theirs just like us. Ours were on the property when we bought it. And it's 2-story on 5th Street. How many times a day do elected officials, city staff, city workers go up and down 5th Street, the post office, everything else? And you mean to tell me that that got built and no one noticed it? I mean, they're in the city, they're available. So there's just a lot of evidence that says it wasn't clear, and it wasn't clear what you could and could not do. And I think that's true of the administrations over the past couple of decades. So what I would ask you to do and is to, tonight is like a year we've been talking about the beach vendor. 1 year since you guys started talking about this. And you've given it lots of thought, careful deliberation, probably more than you wanted to. Lots of research. I've heard all of you guys talk about the different researchers, and you called this person and called the other person. We're just asking that look at the rights of property owners, both those for this issue and those against this issue, and give it thoughtful deliberation. Think about it. Think about the rights of the property owner to have full enjoyment and use of their property. Come talk to my neighbors. We've been using ours for 10 years. Talk to the Wilkins neighbors. Talk to the neighbors of the other units that we know are available. Ask them, has it caused a problem? Don't listen to just fear-mongering emails and that are based on zero facts. Go out and do your research and I think the property owners in Mexico Beach deserve more than 15 minutes of deliberation and a problematic ordinance tossed over to planning and zoning. I think that you guys should take the time and give it careful deliberation. You're not going to be issuing any building permits for any new ones until you make this decision, so you're no worse off waiting and figuring it out. So we just ask that you look at this, maybe table the issue for tonight until you can look at what we presented that kind of spells out the different regulations, and then come back together and talk about it and give us the same thoughtful, careful deliberation that you've given to the beach vendors related to public property. This is our private property. We're paying taxes and homeowners insurance on it. We just ask that you would give us that same consideration. Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
Peggy Wood, 2105 Highway 98. If you open that, she's running a mini motel out of her home because she's renting these nightly. So she's running a business in a single family neighborhood. If you open that up to businesses in the single family neighborhood, you're going to destroy your neighborhoods. I mean, that basically, if you allow one business to be in a neighborhood, then other people can come in and do the same thing, which we've never allowed before.
Anyone else?
Connie Reisinger. When I moved into my home, I moved into a single family area. I didn't expect that this would ever come up, that we would build additional things, buildings, sheds, whatever you want to call them, in people's backyards, and they would rent them out. I did expect that the homes that were in the single-family dwelling, low density, of course could be rented out. I also expected that if you had guests or you had your teenage grandchildren, they wanted to put up a tent or they wanted to sleep in the garage, that was perfectly fine with me because it's still a single family. So when you're thinking about this, please consider the fact that this Section D is single family, low density. And I'd like to keep it single family. If you want to build an accessory for your mother-in-law, for your grandkids, I don't care, as long as it's your family. But I am opposed to trafficking of rentals, especially if you are trying to rent them out as vacation rentals. You're going to get, we don't know those people. I would like to have it stable. That's where I live. You want to rent something, we got them all over town. And just because so-and-so has one does not make it right. Thank you.
Mayor, I should be able to respond to that.
No, you should not. No, you should not. You've spoken, and we're fine.
Mayor, that was a personal attack, and I should be able to respond to it.
You've registered that complaint, but we're fine. You have been to the podium and said your say. I don't consider that a personal attack. Yes, sir, you had a...
So, my name is Mark Wilkerson. We live at 122 5th Street. We purchased the property based on what was advertised, so on and so forth. I believe y'all heard my wife a few weeks ago speak. I've met several of you there. I don't necessarily know what to do because I've gotten tied up in the middle of something that I don't know what it is. Everybody's in an issue. I don't know. I've watched the last 6 months worth of video here. I've watched it. I've seen we don't change the LDR to the next breath. Oh, we change it because I like food trucks. We don't change it for this. We do change it for that. I don't know where the precedence is for this committee. I don't like it. Obviously, I haven't been here long enough and I'm not a permanent resident, so maybe I don't have the right to even say anything. But I'm aggravated, so I'm trying to be calm. All I know is I spent a lot of money for me and my wife to live in Mexico Beach. I spent a lot of money to buy a small piece of property that I should be able to do what I want to on it within reason. And I'm not allowed. So I don't like it. I think it's overreach of government. And in my opinion, and I'll let it go, I apologize, but I'm glad the top wire on the fence is not barbed wire.
Okay, thank you. All right, council, any other comments from us in terms of what, do you have, want to offer direction of where we go, or sit on this, or comment more about it, or what?
I heard, didn't P&Z offer to have a workshop or something, get input on this? I understand from the citizens, if I came in and presented a plan and somebody said, gave me permission to build that, and I spent $20,000 or $30,000, that I wouldn't be real happy for spending that money. I understand that. And I think, you know, one thing the gentleman said, within reason. I think there's room to do a lot of things within reason. And if, from what I've seen, I hadn't seen the gentleman's place, I've seen Ms. Castro's place, to me, it could be next door to me and I wouldn't have a problem with it. But I think it wouldn't be a bad idea to have a workshop to get input of how it could be done, if it can be done. This thing, I mean, from the beginning, I sat here when they had the attorneys here, 2 attorneys. One attorney says it's okay, one says it's not okay. So you go to a special magistrate, and he keeps it for 8 or 10 weeks, and then he can't even make a decision. So, you know, I feel helpless. Attorneys, they can't make a decision, but they want us to figure out if it's okay or not. You got some people say it's not legal. Other people say it's legal.
Well, I think that if we do anything to make it clearer, then I think all those accessory structures that we already have should be grandfathered in. Because some of them that we're aware of have been approved by the city, others have been sold to people with the understanding that they have an accessory. And if the realtor told them that, then the realtor was under the understanding from the city that that was a go. So if we look at to clarify things, I do believe that anything we have right now is grandfathered in.
So again, what would be the direction that we would want to go in terms of, I mean, what we asked, we sent it to P&Z, which was what we asked to be done. What direction do we want to go now? What's those of you that want to have a suggestion for moving forward?
I remember in 2012 when I bought a place here and completely redid it. I was kind of surprised how much we redid, but my wife had all that in mind all the time. So we wound up with a building which was approved, was okayed by the code inspector, code person. Excuse me. And I had what I like to call a studio. And I had a toilet stubbed up, and I had a place for a lavatory stubbed out, which I explained when the person came by to look at it and give me the CO. I put a big ugly utility sink in there for cleaning brushes. I put a toilet in, and then a year or two later, I decided I'd put a Murphy bed in for the grandkids. Not necessarily for my sister-in-law, but for my grandkids. And now I'm illegal. I don't plan on changing things. And I think in a lot of situations with people we're talking about now, I think we're mostly talking about the people that are already here and done things, because when I drive around and look at the new buildings going up, the new houses, most of the time there's not room for them to add any more additional space in the backyard because of the square footage. And the other thing I think regarding the rentals, I think we've had a lot more problems with house rentals than we have with the other kind of rentals. And you know what I'm talking about. You look up and there's 24 people in a house and 7 people rented it. And that has turned out to be a problem over the years. And most of the time it's kids, college kids, whatever. But occasionally, I don't know who should cover this, maybe it's the realtor, whoever's renting the house, because it's very difficult for them to be on top of how many people stay in that house. And when you get an unruly bunch of folks staying next door to you, you'd like for them to move. So there's a couple of ways to look at all of this. Personally, right now, I would prefer tabling this and give it some more thought.
Okay.
I go along with tabling it, or just forget about it completely. Those people that have the structures, and if they're used for family, good friends or the rental because they've already been doing this and we haven't had any complaints, then continue with what we've done in the past. We haven't had the complaints, I'm not sure what it's hurting anybody.
Well,
Then you got
it's clearly, and I've been on the record with this, and I have taken some criticism for it, but it is clearly against the LDR. And I don't think that it would be appropriate for this council to say, continue on when you have on the record that accessory apartments, dwelling units, whatever you want to call them, detached from the house, and that we should continue on and ignore that. I would not, I'm not going to support anything, and I've said this before, I'll say it again tonight, that I put a lot of stock in what the LDR has created for this town. It has been a good document, and you hear it every day. We like where we live, we like how we feel about our community, we like, people love our little town. And a lot of that comes because we have had an LDR and people have abided by it. And because there's a violation of the LDR, for me, I'm not willing to just say, well, they had permission, because I personally am not aware of where all of these people have permission to do this. And if they're a detached dwelling unit, apartment, accessory apartment, it says you can't have that. And I don't think we ought to grandfather someone in because they have a structure that is contrary to what the LDR says you can have. Because too many people have been told, no, you can't do that. I don't think we ought to change who we are. I'm not going to support changing who we are because there's violations of the LDR. So, I'm fine with tabling it. I will entertain a motion for whatever. Jerry, if you want to make that a motion, I'm fine with that. Because just tabling it doesn't change what's being done now. It simply says we're going to table it and talk about it. We'll move forward with.
Mr. Mayor.
and then I don't disagree if it's in the LDR, and it's, from the standpoint, is illegal, and that's the reason I think we need to talk this thing out, and I'm not opposed to changing the LDR. I know you are, but I'm not, if we decide on how better to handle the situation.
Well, what you and I think, Jerry, is that's not what's at debate here. What's debate is the LDR is in existence today. I'm fine with tabling it, talking about it, and coming back, having a workshop. I'm not opposed to any of that.
You're just opposed to changing the LDR?
No, I didn't say I was opposed. I'm saying that what we have now is what we have now.
I agree.
That's all I'm saying. And to ignore that or think that we should just somehow grandfather someone in.
we're agreeing with each other.
You know,
That's good.
Well, I think we have no choice but to look at it, understand where you're coming from. I also have empathy for people who have purchased property that they didn't build on and were sold with all good, honest trades. Had the apartment and they purchased it from a real estate person, and the knowledge wasn't passed. I feel for them. I feel for people who have come in and have gotten the approval to build, even though it's against the LDR, from our building department, and it goes through. I think with those places out there, we have no other alternative but to do as what you're saying, is to table it as it is now and really look at how to make it right for our city and our citizens. I think there's good input from both sides as far as the rentals, not creating more, but we also have citizens who are good citizens who knowingly or unknowingly, in many cases, I think unknowingly, because I think we have, as a city, made mistakes about allowing things being built with good faith. They may have come in one case I know of, and has called it their playroom, and the person that built the house over the years changed it, and I know that has been resold then to another family who had no knowledge that it was against the LDR and was not told by the real estate person that it was against the LDR, so they bought it in good faith. We have good citizens on that side too. So I think we have to look at it. The rental situation seems to be a hot button, which I understand, and probably should be included on how we look at that. But I do think we have some
All right,
very
so we
good
wanna table
citizens.
it?
I think it needs to be
Okay.
tabled. I think it does need to be looked at all the way around.
You've been, we'll table, make a motion then, and then, yes, comment, please.
Well, I didn't necessarily expect that we'd have a vote tonight. I'd say based on what I've heard, that Jerry probably has a voting conflict, shouldn't make the motion, shouldn't vote. You're welcome to participate in the conversation, talk about what you like and don't like about the rules, but because you have a unit in your yard that's one of these types of units, I would advise against making the motion or voting. And then tabling, it's fine. You don't even really need to vote on that. But I would say the handout that Ms. Castro provided, I read over it. It's logical. It's more detailed. What I drafted, I tried to keep it short and simple. That tends to be what you prefer. But in this case, if you like seeing the rules laid out more clearly or more detail, we can work on something like that. These may not be the exact rules you'd want, but this approach is fine. And we'll just have to figure out what you want from a policy standpoint.
Okay, well, if we don't need to vote on it, then we'll just acknowledge that it's tabled.
Okay?
Is that agreeable to the, okay? All right. Number 2, dumpster purchase.
We just sold the fire truck a little while, or not the fire truck, I apologize, the garbage truck, the old garbage truck. I don't remember the exact amount, got a little over $14,000 after everything was said and done. We're in dire need of dumpsters for the city, and I was told I needed to request that we can use that money that we got from selling the fire truck, or the garbage truck, to buy the dumpsters. I am having a rough time with that one. I apologize.
Where does that money go?
It was $14,505, and it's deposited in the sanitation fund as sale of surplus property. This is part of why that budget amendment's not here yet, because I wanted to include this one if we do it. So if
Well,
we...
if it goes in, it's just an unbudgeted item. That's what you're trying to, that's, okay.
Correct. We'd want to amend the budget to allow for the capital purchase of dumpsters.
Which we currently have none. We don't have any more. We're out.
Say that again.
We're out of dumpsters. We don't have
Oh, I'm
any
sorry.
dumpsters to
Yes,
replace
yes,
the old ones with.
I got you.
Yes, sir. And, sorry.
No.
This would allow us to get 8 6-yard dumpsters and 4 4-yard dumpsters.
Okay. Anybody want to make a motion to that effect?
I so move that we use the excess money or money from the fund to allow for the purchase of dumpsters for the public works.
Second.
Have a motion second. Further discussion? Any comments? Any opposition?
Nope.
Motion carries 5-0. All
Thank
right. Thank you. Chief Simmons.
All right, so now that we've passed the fire assessment, we had budgeted for a debt service payment on a new fire truck. We currently have one. You guys know it's 13 years old. That's one of the things ISO requested, was to have a second truck. I can say it's gone down 3 times in the last 30 days, but before that it did really good and it didn't go down. Right now it's got a bad valve, but they've made it stay open. So the idea is we're not trying to get rid of the old truck, we just need another truck also. What I handed out was a quote for a Toyne mini pumper. Being that we're gonna have full-time guys, you'll see us responding all the time in an apparatus that has water. You won't see us in that little Expedition anymore. That will be a command type vehicle for myself or other supervisory role people. This mini pumper does everything a full fire truck does, but it's on an F550 diesel chassis. It's on the back page of that handout. That's a similar truck. We would spec it out the exact way we want. They're cheaper to operate on a daily operational, and then our city has a lot of dead-end streets. It's a lot easier to turn around because the big heavy truck will crack concrete driveways. And in my experience in the fire service, I've been on trucks where we had to replace people's driveways, and that's expensive. So it's also significantly less than a normal fire truck. Besides getting approval to purchase it, it's a 9-month build time. We're going to ask for a rush, but this is something, that's why I wanted to bring. We don't have to pay. Would be to purchase it on the Houston-Galveston Area Council contract. It's a national contract similar to the Florida Sheriff's Association, except it's less money. It's a $2,000 flat fee, and the Sheriff's Association, which we usually buy on the state contract, is how it's referred, is different. The second thing is direction on how we would want to finance it. We spoke with Centennial locally. They offered a rate of 3.66, which is less than we budgeted for. We budgeted for 4% on a 10-year loan. The other option would be if we wanted to finance it to ourselves and make the interest ourselves. It doesn't matter either way which way we go with it, but that would involve tying up reserve funds. And the truck's just under $250,000. It's $248,432, but we're using the number 250 as a round number to budget. And Adrian has numbers on payments and all that if you need it, but it was budgeted line item for the assessment.
Payments and all, I don't see them.
No, just the payments were on the fire assessment plan for the next 10 years that we had passed out.
The assessment budgeted $31,595 a year for 10 years. And if we did finance this ourselves, now I'm okay with tying up our reserve money if you are, it would be a payment of $28,788, and that is a 3% interest rate over 10 years, which would make our general fund almost $40,000.
Over 10 years,
Over 10 years,
40,000.
at 3%.
And like I said, it wouldn't be due until we deliver the truck. We'd actually fly there and pick it up and then have a check ready to present them once we say the truck is okay. That's part of the cost is they fly us there, and when we drive it back. It's built in Breda, Iowa, so it's a good ways away, but we'll be all right. We'll take a couple guys to drive it back. So.
I don't know who's opposed to doing it that way. Paying our self-interest.
And it's a new truck?
Yeah, it'll be a brand new truck. Toyne has they're the only ones that carry the two staples that makes Toyne a good truck. They're a small company, so they would add what we wanted. We want a full capability of a full-size truck, which the two others I talked with, we'll get with the engineers was the response I got. We need to order something. It's a 10-year paint warranty for Toyne, and then they also have a thing where you can put 1,000-pound weight in any compartment and they guarantee it, so it's built safer. If, God forbid, we block traffic with our truck and it gets hit and the guys are inside of it, just better safety for them.
So this would make ISO happy?
As far as having the reserve truck, yeah, our truck now would become the reserve truck. This would become the primary, and that's what they requested, that we have a reserve apparatus. They don't want to see downtime. So like our documented downtime this last 30 days looked really bad because we had 3 different days where we were down a truck. That's what they don't want to see. That makes you get classed like a 10 also.
Didn't I read, Danny, where the equipment was not part of the ISO rating?
No, each apparatus, each engine, all we have is engines here. Each different type of truck gives you an ISO credit. The pickup trucks we have give 0, but like a ladder truck gives credit, an engine gives credit. There's a certain amount of equipment they require to be carried on that engine. Most of what we already have. The only thing there would come on this truck is new fire hose and nozzles.
But we weren't criticized.
On equipment? No, he just said you need a second truck. That's what we budgeted for.
And we can't find something that meets our needs less than this?
Not new. No, sir. We looked at used, but, you know, with the history of the last truck we bought, it doesn't pump at all. And I think with the way the city's going, I think it's most cost effective to buy one new. The other thing about this being on the 550 truck chassis is it's cheaper to re-chassis in the future. So let's say we get really busy over the next 10 or 15 years and we wear one out. I doubt we will, but say we do. You could buy another 550. At today's market, it would be $60,000 to completely re-chassis it. Now, I don't know what it will be in 10 years, but for this truck, if you were to pull the body off, put a new F550 under it, it would be about $60,000. So that's the other thing about this truck is it's re-chassisable.
The existing one we have a valve not working. Are we going to have to rebuild the motor on that or what?
No, the tank to pump, which is where you get your water from the tank before you hook to the hydrant, it actually broke open. Luckily, the guy that works on our trucks came out overnight, made sure it was open all the way, but there's no valve to close it. So if we did have a big commercial fire, we would lose some pressure from not being able to close that valve. But they don't make that truck anymore. It's 13 years old, so the part's being made for it. So we're looking at about 4 weeks out on that. And so when you have a second truck, you don't have the downtime documented like we have now. Once you have a second truck and this truck goes in for PM, that doesn't count against you as downtime because you have a truck to respond in the city.
And it sounds like a truck of this size is more reasonable in a small city and with the roads we have.
Yeah, the only downside would be is if you looked at the tank size for water, it's a 300-gallon tank versus 1,000. But as you guys know, we have a pretty good hydrant system here, and I studied this in depth, and I couldn't find anywhere that wasn't more than 1,000 feet in a straight line, and that's how much hose we carry to connect to a hydrant. So I don't see needing a larger tank size.
Any other questions? Okay. So what are you asking us for tonight? What is it that what is your request?
To make a motion approving the purchase of the truck and then the direction on how to finance it.
Okay, the question I have on the reserve fund is what is the repayment schedule? Same as it would be if it were borrowed from the bank?
You can do it annually or monthly, it wouldn't matter. It'd be that wouldn't be true. It'd be $28,788 a year at 3%. Now, the fire fund could afford to go to 4.95% at their budgeted payment, but I think we'd probably roll that back, our assessment amount, in further years and just do the 3%. But again, there's options.
You're talking about an annual repayment of $28,000 to the reserve fund?
Correct. For 10 years. $28,788.
And we make 40,000
And you'll make $39,433.
instead of paying the bank 39.
And more than that, because their rate would be higher than that 3%. It saves on both ends. It makes us money and saves money on the other side. But you are tying up $250,000 of your reserve money.
For the first few years, you'd be able to finance that back against the truck, but after so many years, I don't think you'd be able to. I think that number's probably 5 years. So for the first 5, you'd be able to borrow back against the truck, but after that, my understanding is you're not going to be able to borrow back against that truck, at least not at a good rate.
Okay. Everybody got all that? Okay. Chair will entertain a motion. I think it ought to be in 2 separate motions, one on the financing and one on the truck.
All right, I make a motion that we purchase the Toyne 304L for $248,432.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Discussion? Any comments from the floor? Call the roll.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Ms. Albrecht?
Yes.
Mayor Kathy?
Yes.
Mr. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Putnam?
Yes.
Okay. Chair will entertain a motion or further discussion on the financing of the truck.
How much do we have in the reserve fund?
$1,102,927.18. Wait, that's not true. It's 100,000 less than that because it's in the CD. So $1 million.
And how much would we save by financing ourselves? About-
One number I didn't calculate,
Okay.
but I can do it pretty quick.
I think it's roughly around 15 to 20,000 that we would save, but the
Okay.
reserve fund would make the 39.
You'd save about 10,000.
Okay.
Are we adding any to the reserve fund this fiscal year?
No.
And we haven't.
We have not
And
since
we
I've
have
been
never-
here.
We have not added any money to the reserve fund in probably
6,
close to 8
7
years.
years.
What do you think?
Repeat that again, what you say.
Which part?
Well, I guess by us financing,
If we use our reserve dollars and finance to purchase this outright with our reserve cash, the reserve fund, of course, would pay that $250,000. But over the next 10 years, the fire fund, which is now separate from the general fund with the assessment, would pay $28,788 per year. And at the end of the 10 years, we'll have made the general fund $40,000, just under $40,000.
And the difference then between that and if it was through the bank?
Through the bank is 3.66% only for the first 5 years, and after 5 years it goes to the prime rate of the Wall Street Journal. So it could go up, could go down. So at a minimum, we will save $9,000.
So every year, the fund would get 28,000 back
Correct.
that we would put in our reserve fund.
So the fire department will save money, the general fund will make money, instead of them spending the same and it going to a bank and not ourselves.
And so if we did it ourselves, we would be making 40,000.
Correct.
Okay.
There's one more option now that sorry, I didn't think about it. If we pay for half of it up front, we save another small percentage too, which I didn't know which direction we were going to be going. I will get you that number as soon as I find it, but we do say, if we're going to use the reserve fund, we would save a little bit more money to go ahead and pay the half up front before it was built. But I have to get that number. I thought we would probably go the route of the bank, and I apologize.
I want to make a suggestion. Could we table the financing and you give us something instead of us just talking about this?
Visual?
Yeah, that's perfect.
So that everybody sees what we're doing with the reserve fund, how it's going to be paid back. I mean, it should be pretty simple to submit that. And then everybody knows what we're making a commitment to.
And we,
9 months to make the decision.
And that's right.
so we can go ahead and order it, and
So
we
you
don't get
can order
delayed.
it.
Yes, so that's perfectly fine.
Okay, good. All right,
I'll
let
give
me
you
ask
scenarios.
one other
Is that fine with
question.
everyone?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mayor, can I ask one other
Yes, sir.
question? If he orders it, say, tomorrow, then the option he was talking about.
We probably have a
if we
little
pay
time there. I think
for
he,
that,
for
would
the
we-
paying up front, yeah, I'll get some, I think he would
we
work
have-
with
As long
us.
as we'd have enough time, I think at least to the next meeting that we could look at it with all.
Well,
Yeah,
We tasked him to give us something, which I think should have been part of this, quite frankly, so that
Sorry.
we know what we're doing.
I
When it
understand.
comes to money, people like to know where the money's going.
That's
We'll have something next meeting for you, for sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Planning and zoning.
Your Honor, we've been down a couple of members for alternates for quite some time. And we've had someone step forward wanting to be one of the alternates for the plan and zoning. It is highly irregular that a city employee would step up and be considered. And quite frankly, most of the time, it could be an ethical violation. Because that person, having been appointed, then becomes a public officer. Even though that possibility exists, the onus of sorting that out is not on the city, it is on the individual. So we had the individual today go ahead and make a phone call to the Florida Commission on Ethics to ask if that appointment would be an ethical violation. And the bottom line is, they do not feel that it is a violation, because the police department itself has no business with the plan and zoning, so there's no way to cross the two. The factor that sold me on it when I was first approached with this possibility was the fact that in about 3 months, Laura's going to retire. And so it won't be an issue then at all. So in the meantime, she would be able to be an alternate and get her feet wet, learn about the comp plan and LDR, be involved in those processes, and then hopefully as another member might retire from the P&Z, could step up and be a member. So bottom line is, there's no ethical violation, so I would recommend to the city council that Laura Metcalf's appointment to alternate number 1 be approved.
I would just add, I hadn't noticed the employment status of the applicant. Whatever you vote on, please make it subject to legal review. I want to look over that at the office in the morning, just confirm. But usually the Commission on Ethics is right.
Pardon me, what was that last part?
So usually the Commission on Ethics is correct.
But he's a lawyer, right?
It went to their general counsel.
I like Laura. I think it's a great idea, but I think we should wait till she's retired, whether it's ethical or not. I just think it's better for that person to be free and clear of city responsibilities.
I agree with you. If the majority wanted her, then I would say she stay an alternate, even if something opened up as a permanent, she doesn't take it until she's no longer employed.
Well, I'm fine with the administrator's suggestion. Been checked out. We need people on there that have taken active interest, and if it's been verified and recommendation is, I'm going to support that, if it gets that far.
Hello?
Is there either comments and or a motion to accept? That's what we have before.
At this point, I'll make a motion to accept and see what the board wants.
All right, we have a motion. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Ms. Albrecht?
No.
Mayor Kathy?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
No.
Mr. Putz?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's subject to his review, right?
That's what he said. He was going to look at it, but like he
Is that
just
what everybody
said.
intended? That's how I'd certainly prefer it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I mean, he said he was going to look at it, but I mean, he also said that generally the Ethics Commission is correct.
Well, it always depends how you ask the question.
Okay. We will go with that vote unless you tell us that you have concerns that we need to consider.
I'll look at it first thing in the morning.
Okay. Miscellaneous from anyone?
I have something.
Okay.
As you, I'm sure aware that when we first started Parker Park, one of the things I thought that would be nice to have would be a walking bridge from 98 onto the park. And it was not a priority. Dewberry has looked at a couple of grants for it, and they don't fit. So what I really need to do, have consensus from the council. I talked to CDC, Kimberly, about the possibility of helping us with funding it. But before I bring it up at the Thursday meeting, I just want to know if it's just 1 out of the 5 that are interested in going ahead with the concept of a walking bridge. And if the majority don't want it, then I won't bring it up at CDC. No sense in bringing it up to CDC. I did talk to Jeff this week and Dina, and they said that they have some other ideas, but it's a lot of legwork, and unless we really want to go that direction, they have other things that they're working on. They'll be glad to do the legwork to find them some funding, but not unless it's really something that the council wants them to look at. So really, I just need to know what the council thinks.
Do we have an idea of the cost, Linda?
Yeah, the latest that Jeff got completed everything, permits and everything, about 100,000.
And, you know, my question would be, Kimberly, then,
Yeah, give
a
us-
little bit, I would like to help a lot.
Right, right, and that's, I mean, Kimberly and I talked it, I haven't brought it up to the board, I was gonna bring it up Thursday, and then I thought, I really need to make sure that it's not just one of 5 people on the council that thinks that would be a good idea. I don't know how much they can afford, and I don't know if if the rest of the board would go along with it.
My concern is the amount of use. I mean, certainly with the gumbo, it would have been helpful with the gumbo. Is it worth spending 100,000 unless the park gets a lot more use?
And I don't know what grants, Dewberry can search out, if there are any, I mean, this is,
And mine is the fact that it is $100,000. There are things, I like the idea of the bridge, don't get me wrong, but I think there are things more important. If we could find grants and CDC would take care of 90% of it, then I don't have a real problem. But right now with $100,000, we're trying to build a fire department. It would be nice to have, but I guess if I wanted to vote on it happen right now, I'd rather wait till next year to vote on it, to be right now.
I'd rather see a pavilion or something like that. A place people can gather for picnics or whatever. I like the bridge idea, but I agree, down the line.
okay.
Of course, I want to fill the moat too.
We'll bury you there.
Well, evidently, that's gone by the wayside.
Filling the moat.
Well, the permitting just got so convoluted with the Corps, I've never seen anything really like that. Jeff was trying to help us out, they didn't even charge us. I started that legwork thinking we could just deal with DEP, but then that went away. I don't know, Jeff, if it's even feasible to pursue that, if we're gonna have to mitigate. And it seemed to be that's what you found out. I mean, it's the money. I
Okay.
like the bridge, and I like anything to do with the park that's gonna enhance people using it, because that's the only way it's gonna start. I think a pavilion's important, and I think you ought to ask them and see what they say. See what the CDC says. I mean, this isn't a commitment.
Oh,
It's
no,
just- It's just
no.
saying that, hey, look at it.
And if we don't get a grant, we'd never build it, I'm sure. So then that's why we would need Dewberry and Jeff and whomever else.
How much,
wants-
is that a DEP permit? To put a walking bridge across there?
DEP and Corps, correct.
That's just wonderful.
Or, really, for a walking bridge?
Because the piles will be embedded.
Never mind, never mind. I know what you're gonna say.
Very minor impact with the piles, very minor.
Well, then, I do have a question that when we're talking about a pavilion and we're not gonna fill it in, most likely will not could we put if we built a pavilion, can it extend cantilever out over the water?
And got pilings.
That would be like a dock permit, we could.
Yeah.
We should be able to get that.
I was just curious, because
It's an interesting idea.
our green space is too valuable
That's
to just
right.
take up
Yeah.
with
We could
every
certainly-
kind of structure.
We can certainly extend it out over the upland bank area.
Yeah.
It's not,
Yeah. Right,
well, absolutely.
okay. And then, do you have to see the Corps to do that?
No, if
Okay.
we stay in the uplands, then we're good.
We don't have to see anybody to do that?
We have to get approval from the city of Mexico Beach.
Okay,
No.
so,
That's a good idea.
Bring it up,
okay.
and then we see what, and we
Should I
see.
bring it up or no?
Oh, sure, I mean, I'm not
I like
against
that
it.
idea.
Okay, okay,
See what, bring us back.
okay.
Bring us back some positive.
But then we
Thank
can
you.
Any other
decide whether
miscellaneous?
it's the
Yes, sir.
bridge
Just
or
want to
a
inform everybody
pavilion.
that the intersection of First Street, Florida Avenue, or C Street is now a four-way stop.
Saw that.
Good.
Where's that?
First Street and Florida Avenue or C Street, depending on which way you come from.
I have one miscellaneous. I've researched Ms. Metcalf's status, and I'm fine with her being on the Planning and Zoning Board.
Okay.
Okay.
You're quick.
You did that already?
I did that.
On our bill.
Hey,
No, he's here.
Yeah,
He's
well,
here, that's right. Which, we have a super lawyer.
All right, motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Thank you, everybody, for coming.